Hello everyone. I can absolutely guarantee you that wasn't the longest 5-minute countdown ever. It was exactly the same length of countdown as every other 5-minute countdown. Welcome, and we're going to talk about DAWless. So just out of interest, I'd like in the chat, could you just type which of these groups you're in? Number one, are you not DAWless and not thinking about it? You're interested in how I am making music. That's first group. Not DAWless, not thinking about it. Second group is not DAWless but considering it. Third group is partially DAWless, either hybrid or do different things in different projects. And number four, 100% DAWless. You don't do anything else other than without a DAW. Can you post in the chat? Not DAWless, not thinking about it, just interested in how I make music. Number two, not DAWless but considering it. Number three, partially DAWless. Number four, 100% DAWless. What about you, Luke? Which are you?
I would say not DAWless but considering it. DAWless curious.
DAWless curious. Yeah, okay. And what are the reasons you're considering it? So post in the chat which group you're in, people watching this.
I think it looks fun. I think it looks, sometimes when you're on the computer, it's easy to get distracted or pull away from it, pull away from what you're doing. There is something kind of like, I don't know, like when you're DAWless, you're like not connected to the internet necessarily, unless like you're streaming. Also, I think the aesthetics of it are cool. It just looks cool and fun, and kind of challenging too in a way.
Cool.
Yes. I would say so.
Not often people say that about me. But anyway, so no, yeah, okay. So we've got. Let's have a look. Rob is not DAWless but considering it. Andrew is partially DAWless, as is GS3000. John, it's the same, partially DAWless. Mr. Hugh is not DAWless but considering it. Paul is 100% DAWless and won't do anything else. No, just 100% DAWless. I didn't say that. Number three is partially DAWless. Manuel is not DAWless and not thinking about it. Zach is 42. Got no idea what that means. And Oliver is DAWless curious. And Dave Knight is DAWless, 100% DAWless, I presume, maybe? I don't know. Okay, cool. So I just want to put a disclaimer. Now, the purpose of this video is really to help anyone who is DAWless and struggles to make music that way, or anyone who's considering going DAWless, to help them make the decisions that you have to make. One of them being, do you do it or not? And the other is, how do you do it? And the third is just as an overall, for those who aren't considering it, is for those who, there are certain ways of thinking about it, but the way that I think about it, I believe anyway, will be useful for anyone. Now, there is a disclaimer to put in here, because obviously over on the Make Music Your Life channel, and you'll know that we're not on the Make Music Your Life channel because I have my Zentor hat on, okay? So that's when you know that we're going to be talking more about my music than other things when I've got my Zentor hat on. When I haven't got my Zentor hat on, it's all going to be about you, okay? And that's over on the Make Music Your Life channel, yeah. So there's a disclaimer here, okay? When I'm talking as a coach, I am much more sort of, this is what I know, and I think this is a good thing for you to think, okay? But over here, this is actually how I'm thinking about DAWless and not DAWless. It's not the truth, and there are many different perspectives on this, and I don't believe any are wrong particularly, any are the truth, any are right, bar one, which particular type of perspective, which I think is utterly ridiculous. And I will get into that a bit later. But as you know, if you're somebody new, and you might not know this, but I do tend to get very passionate and excited, even just about my opinion, okay? And I do come off like I'm speaking the truth, but trust, this is just my perspective, okay? Which I hope you find useful and saves you a lot of time, money, and heartache, okay? But in general, if what you are doing now is consistently producing a lot of great music, which is getting better, and you're having a bunch of fun, keep doing what you're doing, okay? Let's just remember that. Yeah, there is not some perfect workflow that is going to solve all of your problems. Yeah, if you're making a lot of music, you're enjoying yourself, and the music is getting better, you're good with the DAWless versus non-DAWless thing. Okay, so how does everybody here? Right, how do you, Luke? You speak, and what I'll ask you the questions, but I'm also asking the group to post in the chat. Yeah, so that we don't have big gaps. Okay. So the next question, which I'd like everyone to post in the chat, and Luke, you can just say it. What is DAWless? What does it mean? What's the definition for you?
Not using a
also, I'll just
DAW.
post in the chat your answer to this same question. Yeah, sorry. So go on, Luke. Yeah.
I think not using a DAW is the means by which you are creating music. Or if so, or using it to a much lesser degree than your primary.
So what's going on in your mind right now, Luke, as you're thinking about this question?
Trying to interpret something that I hadn't consciously considered until right now.
Okay, so everyone's saying not using a computer. So are there not computers in a lot of DAWless gear? How is an Octatrack not a computer? Hardware, not software. Here's another one. Okay. Is there not software in a lot of hardware? Hardware sequences outboard synths drum machine effects. Okay. Not using a computer sequencer program, but instead of using live gear to run the show. Yeah, so there are all these distinctions that we're making between DAWless and not DAWless. Yeah, so no computer, right? There are I mean, these are all computers. Yeah, I'm not sure actually. I'm not familiar. I don't think the DFAM has a computer in it. I don't think it does because I believe it's 100% analog, but I'm not sure. I think the Subharmonicon probably does. It's got firmware, as does the Mother 32, as does the Beatstep, as does this. Yeah, okay. So out of the box, well, I'm actually surrounded by boxes. Yeah. No software. Well, what do a lot of these things use? Software. Okay. Not a digital audio workstation. An Octatrack is actually a digital audio workstation, as is an MPC, as is a Maschine, as are many of the things that we call DAWless. Analog, not digital. Lots of hardware is digital. Modular, Youre. Well, if someone plays synths or used a looper, would they not be DAWless? Yeah. Now, I understand, we go, yeah, but you know what I mean. But this is really, really important. Because I believe this DAWless versus not DAWless thing is actually the wrong question. There's a load of assumptions baked into it which don't hold water. And one of the things you get in this whole DAWless, non-DAWless thing is a load of purists. And this is the one perspective that I believe is utterly ridiculous, because what purists are about is tribalism rather than about the important thing, which in this case is music, is the actual music. How much music you make, how good it is, how much fun you're having. Yeah? And you can do that DAWless, and you can do it with a DAW. Yeah? And the reason I'm just bringing to mind what the actual definition of DAWless is, and how actually, when you think about it, these definitions break down, then you actually start to see there's a number of faulty assumptions going on, right? Because a contradiction, as the great David Deutsch, the physicist says, a contradiction indicates a faulty assumption, right? This is why this question is important. Because when people think about going DAWless, they think about it as a thing. But when you just look at it for more than 30 seconds, it's not actually a thing. Yes, there are distinctions to be made. Yeah, and of course, I've made this video called You Want to Go DAWless. I get it. You want to get out of the actual computer that you stare at all day. I totally get it. I'm not saying that that isn't a thing. Yeah, but the reasons you're doing it are really important. It's not to go DAWless, right? It's not actually about the tools. Yeah, it's about something else. Okay, so the faulty assumptions in this going DAWless thing are, number one, that there is a particular method, a proper method, or that makes real music, or that's more cutting edge, and that other ways are wrong or cheating. That's nonsense. Another faulty assumption, that a particular set of tools is the solution. Yeah, that it's going to solve all of your problems. Well, actually, probably the problems are the way that you're using the tools. Another example of this, not to do with equipment, is the whole music theory thing. People think that that's going to solve a problem, and then it doesn't. It actually enhances the problem. Yeah, because there's a number of people, I bet, I mean, I don't know, I haven't actually met them, but in fact I have. There's a couple of my masterminders who went DAWless, and they found that they just ended up buying and selling a load of gear forever. So their existing problems were just enhanced by the DAWless thing. Yeah. So the tools, the particular set of tools, aren't the solution. They may well help you solve something, but they're not the solution. And the other faulty assumption is this whole idea of the perfect workflow or the perfect setup. You know, that will mean that you have this situation with this fictional situation where there will never be any struggle. Yeah, DAWless is not the solution. Yeah, it's just a set of choices. Yeah. You know, Andrew's saying Arturia is a physical performance sampler. Yeah, it's also a digital audio workstation. Like, I started making music before computers. Yeah, digital audio workstation. Yeah, I mean, I know it's not actually what we call a DAW, but when you know, start making music a long time ago, and you see the through thing, I mean, isn't Logic also a physical performance sampler? Isn't Ableton that? Go and watch Beardy Man. Go and watch Beardy Man, the looper, who is trying to turn Ableton into a looper. Arguably, he's one of the most DAWless people out there in terms of what I'm talking about, and he's using Ableton. So what is the important distinction, right? That I believe, and again, this is my opinion, that I believe actually the DAWless thing, the kind of the DAWless thing is covering up. Yeah, the DAWless or non-DAWless thing is covering up. Well, what's interesting for me was that I didn't actually go DAWless. I realized that I was. So I was like, oh, hang on a minute, I'm DAWless. Yeah. I mean, did the words DAWless come out of my, I mean, you were around, Luke, when I was, you know, this was happening over the last few months. At any point until I started looking at YouTube keywords, did the words DAWless come out of my mouth?
No, not at all.
No. I didn't even, it didn't strike me. It was like literally not even in my, I just didn't think about it. It was just not, right? I didn't think about DAWless or not DAWless, yeah? And that's because of the reasons that I make music and what I'm focused on. So let's post in the chat, what are the reasons that you make music, folks, in the chat? What are the reasons you make music, Luke?
It's enjoyable.
Fun. Yep.
It's it allows me to express myself. When I've done it in the past, people have said they liked it.
So you like having fun, expressing yourself, getting feedback from people, actually like impacting people's lives. Yeah.
Yeah, giving it to them. And yeah, I'd say those are good reasons.
So Nave says freedom. Colin, fun times. David, makes me happy. Yeah. John, creative expression. Drive to create and make people happy. Yeah. So I mean, for me, it's the reasons I make music is that I want to see how far I can go with it, put out ever higher quality music and lots of it in the least amount of time because of my life. I haven't got any other option, and having more fun while doing it. Okay. Now, in order to do that, yeah, you have to solve problems. You have to solve a bunch of problems continually. You have to start, you kind of fall in love with solving problems, really. Yeah. And depending on the kind of problems that you A, want to solve, and B, that are the best problems for you and your particular makeup of strengths and weaknesses to solve, yeah, what kind of problems you are good at solving, what kind of problems you enjoy solving, that is what determines the tools that you want to use. Yeah. And that could be DAWless, whatever the hell that means. That could be non-DAWless. That could be a hybrid. I don't know. It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me, the whole DAWless. It's kind of like missing the point. Yeah. Because with a DAW, you have no limitations. Do you? Can you not decide to have some limitations? Right? When you're DAWless, yes, you have more limitations, but I can tell you what, I've got 3 sound making machines. It is endless, the number of things that I can do just with these machines. Yeah, and it's more expensive. Now, I'm not anti-DAWless, obviously. I'm just trying to give an alternative view because I feel like it's missing the point. Yeah, with a DAW, yeah, you have no physical interaction with the machines, and that definitely makes a difference. That's one of the huge joys of twisting knobs. But of course, you've got MIDI controllers, and they're not. Yeah, definitely. I agree. They're not the same. They are not the same as actually interacting with the instrument. There is an instrument that like these. I mean, for instance, compared to the Dave Smith synth there, not so much the SH7. The SH7 is a bit more like this. But compared to that kind of an instrument or the Beatstep, these really do feel like a musical instrument. Okay. Now I don't have something like an Octatrack or anything like that, so I can't really speak to that. But for me, definitely there's an immediacy, and it's almost like playing, because I play the saxophone and the bassoon and the piano. It's more like playing that. Yeah. But again, on this is even more like an instrument than that, but I'm playing it with VSTs. Right? It's kind of even more direct. So the whole software hardware thing is a big. There's a whole question there. Yeah. The problem is with the DAWless, non-DAWless thing is it focuses you inappropriately on the wrong things, I think. Okay. The other thing about, the physical interaction with things, a lot of DAWless machines don't have the controls right there in front of you. You've actually got a menu dive just like you do in a computer. Yeah. And again, everything that I'm saying here is as a counterweight to this whole sort of distinction is not dismissing the benefit, the differences. It's just bringing to light how it's kind of missing the point. Yeah, because we now are lucky enough to have a set of tools, like an enormous set of tools available to us, whether they're in a DAW, out of a DAW, or, you know, around the corner, or, you know, under my hat. It doesn't matter where they are. It's, do they solve the problem that you are looking to solve? Yeah. And if you're not clear on what those problems are, then you're just going into this thing just because you thought it looked like a good idea, rather than with your eyes open. And you could end up spending a lot of money and going through a lot of heartache and still being in the same situation. So what are the problems? So now thinking about, you know, now I've put this a frame around it. And again, I am not saying that there is no difference between using hardware out of the computer and going in the computer. I'm definitely not saying that, but I'm just trying to change the frame of the questions that we're asking ourselves. Yeah, because even if you are already DAWless, what you buy next and how you move forward by using this frame is actually going to be incredibly helpful. Okay, so what are your biggest problems that you're trying to solve right now in terms of music that going DAWless might, you think might solve, or going more DAWless? Or if you are already DAWless, you know, how are you thinking about progressing? Yeah, what are the problems? Sorry, what are the problems that you're trying to solve? Yeah, by progressing, if you like. So, Luke, what's the problems that you want to solve by going, by, you know, you're considering going DAWless. So, what are those problems?
It's, as soon as I say it, I'm like, well, it would just be the same thing on DAWs. But I mean, one is like the computer can be kind of glitchy, annoying. You know, you open software and it crashes. And then I think, well, anything I've seen with hardware, the same thing happens. And then also kind of it's not as aesthetically visually appealing, I think, to sit in front of a DAW. You know, if I were to do a live stream and just use the mouse, use the trackpad, as it is with something that you're standing up, there's a bunch of machines, there's a bunch of knobs. It looks very cool. It's much more entertaining. And then it also seems like if there was like a dedicated space there was no access to like the internet or anything, it would maybe, I don't know if that's really a problem, because I don't really struggle with that when I'm making music, like getting distracted anymore.
So that's not a problem. That's not a problem that you need to solve. Yeah.
Right. No.
So come on, folks watching. What are the problems that you're trying to solve, that you want to solve, that you think DAWless might solve? Post in the chat.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if the reason that I'm interested is that it's that there's a problem, but it's almost like, well, I guess maybe it's kind of like a shiny new thing that looks fun and exciting.
So right, if there isn't a problem to solve, then I would say that it's probably a bad. I mean, I'm not saying don't do it, but you just have to recognize it's not a good reason to do it. Right? It's just you want some new toys to play with, which is fine. That's that is fine. I'm not. Don't do that then. That's totally your choice, and you're allowed just to buy things because you want a new toy to play with. That's cool. In other words, you're solving a problem of I don't have enough novelty. Yeah, but remember there are other ways of solving that problem which don't involve spending $1,000 on, you know, a piece of hardware. Yeah, and I mean I have bought this stuff, so I'm not saying that anyone's wrong for doing it, but I'm just trying to get everyone clear on why they're doing the thing, or thinking they might want to do the thing that they're doing. Yeah.
For a while, because back when I was performing more, I had looked into it a lot more for performance to go without a computer, because I thought, because we had a few very gut-wrenching experiences of computer issues, and then the more I looked into all the DAWless options, it wasn't like you were 100% safe. You weren't safe. It was just in any scenario, there's something that can break that can cause the full sound to go out. And it's just kind of different solutions and different fixes for each of the different setups.
Exactly. What kind of problems do you want to
them.
solve is the thing. Right. So let's have a look here. The act of physical performance and the inspiration that comes from that activity that a mouse doesn't have. Really? Inspiration that comes from that activity that a mouse doesn't have? I'm not sure that inspiration comes from a mouse or not mouse. Yeah, so just like if you really, really look, I'm not sure that's the case. Yeah, I mean, it's annoying having to use a mouse to turn dials, but I can verify from an entire career making a lot of music with a mouse that inspiration doesn't stop when you use a mouse or trackpad or whatever it might be. Yeah. But the act of physical performance, now that's absolutely a thing. But let's recognize that we have all been inspired while using a mouse. Okay, GS3000, getting stuck editing endlessly and not being creative enough. Getting the feel and groove like DJing, but with machines and seeing where it ends up. Okay, so this is a really good thing. And this, I think, is getting to the distinction I think is important. Is the thing that DAWless does really well. Right, is that if you want to be more like a band, like if you want to make music more like a band, so more live, yeah, then DAWless may well be an option. But again, take a look at Beardy Man. He's a looper. He literally makes all of his sounds with his voice, and he uses a DAW in a totally different way. So it's not a DAW or not DAW that's the thing. And most of his stuff is in software. But he is one of the most DAWless in the spirit of what I think DAWless is, which is it's a performance medium. Yeah. But he's using DAWs. But he's using software. That's what I think the distinction really is about. It's, do you want to make music, and it's not that you can't edit the music later, of course, but do you want to make music in the moment that comes out right then and there, and that it's like you're in discovery all the time? Yeah. Or are you the kind of person, or are your strengths in the creating things that are static? Yeah. It's really the difference between dynamic creation, that is constantly shifting, and the uncertainty and the risk that is involved in it, and static creation, assembling music. Yeah, that is what I think. DAWless is more dynamic, and DAWs are more static. Yeah, just by the nature of how they work. But the thing is, there are upsides and downsides to both. Because if you struggle when you hear the music sounding bad, don't go DAWless. Or do something like do some training with your mind where you can start to hear past it sounding terrible. Because it is going to sound even worse when it comes out of machines at first than it does when it comes out of a DAW. Right? And I'll give you an example right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play my first ever DAWless jam, although I didn't know it was that at that point. Right. And then I'm going to play the one I did yesterday. So the first one is in December the 31st, 2020. I just got, 6 days before, I'd got the Subharmonicon. I had already had the DFAM and the Mother 32. And I just got the Subharmonicon, and I put the piano over the top. And let's see if I can actually make this work, because I don't know where it is. Hang on a minute. Screen. And then, after that, precisely 4 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days later, is a bit of the live stream I did yesterday. Bear in mind, the level of the one from the first one I ever did is louder, so that's going to make it sound better. although I think it sounds pretty bad. So here we go. Where is the video? Here. Okay. Hopefully this works. Luke, you and I won't be able to hear this, but hopefully everyone can. Okay. Ooh. Oh, and we're back. So that first live DAWless jam was, you know, pretty ropey, to say the least, right? But I was still excited by what was going on, not because of the sound of what it was like. I was hearing past that to the process that this was allowing me to do. Okay, now we get on to the bit that if you're considering going DAWless and you think it might solve the kind of problems that you want to solve, that may be helpful to you. It's like, well, what do I need to get, and how do I want to think about this? So what was the question that before we came on, though, you had a question which was like, when in considering going DAWless, what's your biggest kind of question around it?
I think trying to, you know, it's like when you particularly are DAWless, you're playing and then you have this kind of backing band. Like, how do you get the backing band going and then have that going while you're playing and keep it interesting and back and forth, because I'm always like, oh, I could play this keyboard, but then how do I get this stuff around it going at the same time?
So you'll notice in those two examples, the one that I first did on the 31st of December and the one yesterday, that I'm basically doing exactly the same thing. I mean, I actually specifically chose bits where I'm doing a bit of that and then I'm moving to the piano. Now, the second one, the piano was there was less of it, but I do kick off on the piano sometimes, but I just couldn't find a bit from yesterday, which was sort of like that, right? So I was basically doing the same thing. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of iterating on the actual sound of it. So now it's kind of there's more effects, it's coming through various different things. But I, again, specifically chose in the one from yesterday, there's no Turnado action going on, there's no performable effects going on, it's all just the static stuff, right? But what, basically the same thing is happening in both, exactly the same thing. And how I would suggest, I mean, this is how I think about it, I'm not saying it's the right way, but how I would suggest anybody thinks about possibly moving out of the DAW into a more performing way of doing things, which is, again, how I suggest you think about this, not going DAWless, because that's missing the point. Yeah, a more live way of doing things, a more discovery approach rather than a production approach, yeah, is you think about it as if you're recording a band. Yeah, that is the frame I would put around it. Not, ooh, what's got the most shiny, lights and knobs, and what has the most features. What if you are going to do this as a solo? What you're looking for, what is the opposite? What has the least features? If you're starting. Yeah, if you're already like an octatrack, genius, because you've been doing it if it was a totally different situation, right? But if you want to get as far as, I mean, whether you like the music that I'm making or not, you will see how much it's improved in a very short space of time. Yeah, the reason for that is because I've set it up so that there's very little that I'm actually doing or that I can do. I've got a Mother 32, a Subharmonicon, and a DFAM. Those are the only instruments that are playing aside from what I'm playing on the piano and string. There is no other sound making device. Not a drum machine, not anything. Literally nothing, just those three things. Yeah, and as you heard in that at the 31st of December, it sounded bloody awful. Yeah. But I was excited. You could see I was excited. Why? Because I didn't care that it sounded awful, because I was excited about what it could be. I was excited by what it was allowing me to do. All I could hear were where I could go with it. Yeah, and I've still got like 10 times the distance to go than I've already come. Yeah. So just recognize that we're nowhere near done yet. But how it's improved so much in such a short space of time. Well, one of the things is just doing it daily. I didn't do it daily from the 31st of December, however. I did it from the 9th of March daily. Okay. So doing it daily, but also using the same thing over and over again. This is the other thing about DAWless, or in fact about in the DAW too, is that if you think that the tools are the solution to the problem, what are you going to do when you've got a problem? What are you going to do when you've got a problem if you think tools are the solution to the problem, Luke?
Get new tools.
Exactly. Get more tools. Yeah. But they're going to enhance the problem. Yeah. The more tools you get. So if I was if I was to go DAWless again, I would do exactly the same thing as I did last time, but I would go daily immediately. That's the one thing I would change. I would do it daily immediately, because I feel like that. How long was it? January, February. That 2 months, just over 2 months, was a waste of time. Yeah. So that's first thing. And what you need so what I'm saying is get the least amount that you can make music with. Yeah. and know what the function of each of the things that you are getting is. Yeah, what that function is, both in terms of what part of the frequency range it's filling up. Yeah, so a way I think about it, that the people who are doing my program Make Music Live Mastery will know, is beats plus 3. Yeah, you got, if you're doing music with beats, some kind of drumming thing. Yeah, so I use the DFAM and the Mother 32, the world's most expensive hat machine, and then the Subharmonicon, and everything else I'm playing live. Yeah, so I've got beats, Subharmonicon, piano, string. Beats plus 3. Because if you think about it, that's like a guitar band. Yeah. So bass, mid, and high. And if you're wanting to move out of the computer, you're going to be so overwhelmed by the number of things that you have to do that I mean, really, that is way too much already. Yeah, because the other thing that needs to happen, because what I wonder about, and I don't know because I've not gone DAWless in this way, but with things like the Octatrack, and the reason I question whether I mean, I don't want to talk about the Octatrack in specific, you know, like MPCs and Octatracks and the Maschine and you know, all of that kind of stuff, which is just about physical interaction with the music. The bit where I think it's really different, it isn't that. It's not, I mean, yeah, it's a thing, but it's not the thing. The thing with going DAWless, from my perspective, is it's more about what have you got worked out and assembled beforehand versus what haven't you. Yeah, because if you're going DAWless and that involves working out all of your stuff like you would in a DAW, then what is the difference? I don't get it. It's like, yeah, okay, there are differences, but what is the fundamental difference? More menu diving, smaller screens, right? So to me, and again, this is my own perspective, to me, it's really about what is the process that you are using to make your music. And if you want to do it more in the moment, more live, and it be more risky, more scary, and then you're going to have, doing it this way is the way to go. But you're going to have to get used to it sounding rubbish. You're going to have to get used to making mistakes. You're going to have to get used to making a fool of yourself very often, if you do it live on a live stream. Yeah, but making a fool of yourself to yourself. Yeah, it's even more about not focusing on quality than the production method. Right? And so this is what I mean about, does it actually solve the problem that you have, or does it enhance the problem that you have? Yeah. And again, none of this is to say don't do it if you have that problem. What it is to say is maybe you actually want to solve the actual problem, which is the way that you're actually focusing on the music that you are making. Yeah? Is this making sense, Luke?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's kind of like, it's you know, it's like changing your mindset as opposed to thinking that you need to get a new tool.
Again, if you want to get a new tool because you want to shine a new toy and you want to try something else, that's fine. But just be clear about what you're actually doing and why you're doing it. Because I can guarantee that there was a period of time, I can't remember when it was. There was about a month where I just entered a rabbit hole of epic proportions with my DAWless setup. At that point, I didn't even realize it was DAWless even then. It was probably about 3 weeks in. Because what had happened was, I got the new thing, I got all excited about it, I was on this like, oh, it's great, it's this new thing. Yeah, I got the Subharmonicon, I was just like, you know, jumping up and down with joy. And then that bit kind of, that excitement of the novelty wore off, as it always does. And then I was like, oh God, it's not as good as I thought it was. I was just excited. Yeah, and then I entered the rabbit hole. Now, luckily, because of what I do, because I coach people, and that constantly reminds me, I'm telling people this, that, or I'm, you know, they're telling me what they're doing. I reflect back to them and say, "Oh, this is what you're doing." I was like, "God, I'm doing the same thing myself," right? So I'm lucky in that I get that feedback from. They don't tell me that I'm doing it, but in helping other people, you start reflecting on what you're doing. And I got out of that hole, and I was like, "Right, I'm going to start live streaming immediately." Starting now, and I'm just going to do it with what there is, because I was trying all kinds of different things, different ways of doing it, just getting it. It was literally, the great thing about a DAW is so many of the decisions are actually made for you, and you don't have to figure every little thing out, how these different things connect. Yeah, it's almost like it's already there. So yeah, when you're actually playing the stuff, there are more limitations. I can only do certain things with the Moogs, but in setting it up, it's almost more of a rabbit hole than a DAW. Yeah, it's like, because you're like, well, I could do this and I could do that, and yeah. So what you've got to do is you've got to decide on a way of doing something with a limited amount of gear, and practice. Do that for a specific amount of time, like a week, and just do it over and over again, no matter how it sounds, no matter how sticky it is, no matter, because you haven't even got to the point where you have the information to know if it's a good way of doing things or not. Because it's harder when you do it like this. Yeah. So you've got to get past that hump. There isn't a magic solution other than just doing it over and over again. Yeah. So essentially, find where like, if you are a player like Luke is, or like I am, then what I would thoroughly recommend is that one of your instruments, or maybe two of your instruments, like with me, is you playing something. Right? Because that instantly solves a bunch of problems. It's like you've got fingers, like, you know, that can play notes, right? Right? Which means you've got kind of one of the players covered, or even two of the players covered, without the complexity of fiddling around with machines. Yeah, that is something that I would recommend if you're a player. If you're not, you could even do that and just set a MIDI keyboard to one scale and do the same thing, and just get practicing playing single melodies. Yeah, so you can't play wrong notes. So you set the thing up so I can only play the one scale. So you can't play wrong notes. Yeah. So that's the other thing. Yeah, I would thoroughly recommend, because I see a lot of people doing DAWless and they're literally not playing anything, they're just twisting dials, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. But just if you want to get started with the kind of thing that I'm talking about, I would recommend doing it. Face that fear about playing crap. You want to hit, I mean, I've got however many, hundreds and hundreds of live streams, and there's so much like embarrassing stuff on there. But do I care? No, because it's improving. Yeah. So that's number one. Get some live element in there. If it's going to be live, then be live. Yeah. Practice. Number two, I think it was GS3000 on a couple of days ago on one of my Zentor live streams. He was like, "Oh God, you've improved so much on the piano in the last 2 weeks." Thank you very much. Yeah, that's just from practice. Yeah. Number two, when you are DAWless, when you are performing, and even when you're doing a session, when I say performing, I don't necessarily mean in front of people. When you're doing a session, which is like performing because you're doing it live, yeah. Well, first of all, treat it like a performance. Just treat it like, don't stop when you make mistakes. Just do the thing. Yeah, and then you finish, and then you report back on the thing. Yeah, the Make Music Live Mastery people will be familiar with this. Okay, and then change do small changes to your setup or how you're doing it based upon that performance. Not so much the quality of what you're doing, because it's probably going to sound rubbish at first, but how you actually performed in the moment. Yeah. how you felt about it, how engaged you were. Yeah. And one of the things you will notice is the amount that you can focus on is way smaller than you think it is. So what you need in a DAWless setup is you need something that you can set up playing kind of automatically, yeah, that doesn't get too repetitive, or that you can make less repetitive by very small changes. Yeah. So for instance, the way that I've got these three Moogs together means that they are actually affecting each other. Yeah, so they're connected to each other, so that when I change one thing here, it slightly changes something there. And this is the thing about the band, is that they each affect each other. It's like they're kind of playing with each other. That means I can just turn a dial down here and it will change maybe 2 or 3 things. Okay, so when you're thinking about what you want to use, and I can only really be very vague here because people will have different things, you know, what you do, how you do that in an Octatrack will be different how you do it with this. Yeah. But think about how you can make things which are supposedly repetitive either change automatically over time. I'm trying to find the thing to get with that. Yeah, change automatically over time, or with very small changes, you can change a lot. Yeah, something that I've done just the other day, what was it, yesterday, before yesterday or something, with my piano, which I'm very excited about. You know, I've had this, should I do a looper, or do I add a looper in, or do I not add a looper in? I was like, I know what, because I didn't add a looper in because I just found it too, I don't know what, it was like, well, for one thing, in order to do looping well, you've got to be really good at looping, which is a whole other thing. Yeah. But I did want to have something where I could play something and then it repeat. So I was like, why don't I use a couple of tape delay plugins? And by the way, I'm not using them. So here's another ridiculous thing about the DAW versus non-DAWless, the DAWless thing. I'm not using a DAW, but I am using 2 computers. Yeah, so I'm not able to, not Logic, not Reaper, no DAW. Yeah, I'm using Gig Performer, so you can't put notes in it, but you can set up chains and you can use effects. Is that a DAW? Well, no. Is it DAWless? Well, it depends what you mean by DAWless, right? So again, it's like, what is this distinction that we're talking about? So anyway, in Gig, so some people will say, well, that's a hybrid setup, Mike. Hybrid between what exactly? Software? Hardware? Anyway, I'm going to get off my DAWless, non-DAWless thing. So anyway, in terms of the piano, I've put 2 delays on here, which mean, there we go, that I can now go like this. And then I could have the things playing in the background. And simply by turning one of these knobs, I can change things like this. Yeah. So again, I can make, and those things can go on forever if I get the feedback exactly right, the delay feedback exactly right. Okay. So in that way, you're able to affect a change over a very repetitive thing with very, very small moves, which gives you time to focus on one thing. Because really, you can only focus on one thing at a time when you're doing this. Yeah. So Rob asks, are you using the Mac as a slave to record separate tracks? I don't. There's a recorder in Gig Performer. There's just it's just literally like the Mac is. I'm not even recording it into a DAW, so it's just you don't see the files coming up or anything. You just press record, and it records whatever I've got set up going in through my audio interface, just as separate audio files. So I get how many? I think it's like 10 different files. Some of them are going through virtual inputs and stuff. So essentially, and then I just get the audio files, but I never see them being recorded into. And then I can, if I choose to mix and master the particular things, I can then mix those separate tracks. But then everything isn't separated. They're kind of, some of them are grouped together. So like all the effects are grouped together, for instance. So I've got to do my actual live stream in 20 minutes at the after party. So are there any questions that you have about what we've been talking about today? Have you got any questions, Luke?
Not at this point. I'm yeah, it's given me a lot to think about for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think
as many of your talks do.
Yeah, I mean, I think for if you are a playing musician and you miss the live thing, I do actually think it's a no-brainer. I don't see why you wouldn't. Yeah. Like, particularly for you, Luke, I think it would be a big game changer because you did live for ages, and I've seen that. You should see some of the videos of Bells and Robes. It's really inspiring to watch. It's like, God, I wish I was there. And Luke's like, with his long hair and no QAnon beard, and and it's really great. It's really great to watch, and it's like I definitely think that moving more towards particularly for those people who've been, and I'm not saying that means that people who aren't practicing or performing musicians shouldn't go DAWless. I'm not saying that at all. But if you're a live musician in any way, then doing it this way, it seems like, at least for some of what you do, to be a no-brainer. I can't see why you wouldn't, right? Because you've got so many skills which just fit exactly. What I do worry about is those people who've got used to assembling their music and they think that DAWless is going to be the thing that solves the problem, where actually it could make the problem many times worse. While it does have some of the solutions you're looking for, does it actually solve the fundamental problem? Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, so I hope this has been useful. I will do some more streams on this channel about the specifics of what I'm actually doing. I just had to cover this whole DAWless, non-DAWless nonsense because, again, the whole frame that people put around it is just, for me, missing the point. Like, is it literally just about whether you can you click a mouse or twiddle knobs? Is that going to make the kind of difference that you think it is? Not so sure about that. Yeah, there is a big difference, absolutely, but maybe not for the reasons that you think it is. So I'm going to go and prepare for my DAWless performance now. I'm actually thinking about, because what I usually do is I set things up a bit beforehand so I know what I'm doing. And I'm actually thinking about being a bit more extreme and just going like from nothing. Yes, Paul says, who is DAWless? DAWless definitely creates problems. It's just a different set of problems. Yeah, and it's just about, do you want to solve those problems or the problems that you already have? Yeah, and often in some ways, but actually the real problem isn't this. It's this. It's how it's the tool that uses all tools. Okay, so I am going to stop talking now. Subscribe to this channel. It's the Zentor channel to get more of these live streams like that. Like the video, share it with people who are thinking of going DAWless or not, and I will see you next time. So until then, onwards and upwards.